Welcome to An Honorable Profession, a podcast giving America hope since 2018. I'm Ryan Coonerty. Along with Debbie Cox Bultan of the New Deal, I'm lucky enough to be your co-host. An Honorable Profession is a New Deal Leaders podcast. The New Deal is an organization that supports the next generation of American leaders. From attorneys generals to state senators to mayors to school board members, these are the people that are pushing policies and politics that will respond to climate change, rebuild our economy, address racial injustice, and restore our democracy. These are incredibly talented people who have dedicated themselves to public service when their country and their communities needed it the most. Check out newdealleaders.org to see what I'm talking about.
My guest for today's episode is Gretchen Barton from Worthy Strategy Group. Gretchen and her team do amazing work trying to really unearth what Americans are feeling beyond the polls. They ask them to share images, songs, and other data, really to get at the heart of how people are feeling and why. We talked about where people are in this political moment, how things have changed over time, and importantly, what they're looking for in their political leaders. I really enjoyed this conversation. Hope you do too.
All right, Gretchen Barton, welcome to An Honorable Profession.
Thank you so much. I'm thrilled to be here.
I'm so happy to see you in person. This is nice to get to do this.
It's so wonderful. It's so wonderful.
Maybe let's just start about how you got into this work. You founded the Worthy Strategy Group,
Yes.
and you do what I love about what you do, because I've seen the presentations, is you get pretty deep. This is not a surface level understanding of where the public is, and it's super intensive. And so maybe just talk a little bit about how you got into this work and how you do the work.
Thank you so much. Okay, well, I am so grateful to do the work that I do. I've always been a curious person and love to ask people questions. And I started Worthy when I really felt like, gosh, I don't think that we're going deep enough or really understanding the why behind the what, like what people actually are thinking that they don't feel comfortable expressing or aren't even consciously aware of expressing. And so the work that we do, we ask people to bring in images, videos, sometimes songs that represent their world in as full color and as full surround sound as possible. I started it, honestly, after Trump was elected the first time. And I really felt like I think that we're not understanding the American public as deeply as we should. I think that we're kind of Titanic style going towards an iceberg and we don't really see it. I worked in corporate market research where this kind of technique is widely used just on the image level. We expanded it to look at it in more comprehensive ways. But yeah, it's a way of going deeper, asking people through a lot of questions based in psychology and neuroscience, not only what they're thinking, but why they're thinking about it, how it relates to stories in their lives and what it means for them and how they're going to show up, not just at the polls, but in everyday life.
Yeah. Can you talk a little bit? I mean, I think the image and the songs and this surround sound, I love that word, is so interesting and does just it gave me pause when I started to hear you talk about this and what people were showing as how they're feeling. So maybe talk a little bit about kind of what images you're seeing right now from the American people about how they're feeling about things.
Yeah, I mean, so we're seeing a lot of images of people bringing in, people, when Trump was president the first time, people brought in images of drowning. They talked about how they felt like they were slipping below the waves and how no one was coming to save them. Flash forward to the Biden presidency. We saw a lot of people sitting on benches waiting for change to come. Despite the fact that the economy was doing technically well, people still didn't feel the impact of it. Now what we're seeing is a complete shift in how people perceive government. People bring in images of chessboards with pawns being crushed, talking about how the Democratic and Republican parties are playing games and don't really see them, or pictures of boots crushing people, crushing flowers, crushing things. And they talk about how the government is crushing them in their daily lives. And so you see government as sort of either apathetic or an active antagonist in people's lives. And I think that that's why when you see, Mikey Sherrill or an Abigail Spanberger in the last election, stories that they told about, the American public mattering and finding ways to relieve economic pressure really resonated with voters.
Yeah. this crushing nature of government not helping them, people feeling kind of alone, underwater, underfoot, whatever, however you would call it. It's not partisan, obviously. I mean, but it's important to understand.
Yes.
What do you think people are looking for in leaders that they're saying would address those feelings?
Yeah, well, certainly we've seen over the past several years a big change in how Americans are looking at leadership. They used to prioritize goodness as a really key value. Now, more than anything, they're prioritizing strength and efficacy. Those are huge ideas that they're looking for, and what that means is. And by the way, saying that goodness isn't prioritized doesn't mean that they don't want a leader that's good or moral, but they do want someone to show up as strong for them. 87% of Americans don't feel like the world is stable. 70% feel like America is unstable. And so, and only 4% of Americans feel like they have any control at all over the government. And so they're looking for someone who can show up and fight for them, like a parent who cares for them deeply and will, protect them from the bad things and have the strength to do that, while also fighting alongside them to deliver change. Efficacy is something that we've been studying a lot too, because, we can say like, well, we're delivering results. Democrats deliver, right? That's a big party line that we've used. But Americans really haven't felt that viscerally. And whether the data shows that they've received it or not, it doesn't matter. If they don't feel it, then it doesn't exist. So how do they feel it? Speed, we found, actually, is a really important cue for Americans. The idea of things happening quickly and a sense of momentum building is a really important quality. So we're finding like people who can hold the frame and say, here's my vision for you. We're going to fight together to achieve it, and we're going to do it quickly is a really, really important thing for leaders who are running right now or leaders who are in office and hope to meet the American people where they're at.
Yeah. I'm kind of curious about, we've heard a lot of like we're obviously having this big conversation right now about where Democrats should go from here. We were decimated 2 years ago. Now we have this glimmer of hope. You already talked about the two governors-elect, both wonderful women who are going to do great things. So that gives us a little hope that Democrats maybe are starting to unlock the lock of what we do going forward. But I do kind of am interested. Part of the rap on the Democratic Party for a long time has been that we're kind of paternalistic, that we want to solve people's problems for them, that we're not listening to their real concerns, elitism. Those are some of the criticisms we've had over the years. And so I'm kind of curious about how you square the circle with wanting to be, like, when I think of being a parent, let me say it this way, like, there's a difference of being a parent of a little child who you actually have to like make sure doesn't put their finger in a socket, right? And that's a different thing. Right? Yes, we've both been there. Or a parent of an older child, which is actually our job is to make sure that they can succeed on their own.
Yeah.
And I wonder if like the nuance of when you say they're looking for someone, a parent.
Yeah.
Like maybe say a little bit more about what kind of parent are they looking for?
For sure. Well, I think you're right. I mean, certainly the kind of parent that they're looking for is not someone who will mollycoddle them and say, I will do everything for you. I will carry this for you. I will tie your shoes. They're not looking for that. There is a strong desire for Americans to be able to have the opportunity to achieve, to, work hard and achieve things on their own. They just want to be able to have that starting line that's equal to others. That's really, really important. And Americans across the board don't feel like we have that right now. We don't have an equal playing field. And people know that, from the left to the right. What they're looking for in that parent, though, is someone who can say, there is a lot coming at you. I am going to stand in the way of like harm. I'm going to stand in the way of things that are going to actively antagonize you and say, no, we're not going to do that. We're not going to cancel Meals on Wheels. Right. We're not going to cancel cancer research. Right? And have some principled stances. At the same time, they're looking for somebody who can also catalyze them to action. I was really surprised in our recent study how many Americans said, I want a leader to tell me to get up. I want a leader to tell me, and this is of course in the weirdness of the field work, right? I want a leader to tell me to like get in shape or go stand up or get off the couch or whatever. Like you wouldn't have a presidential candidate tell you to get in shape unless it was Robert F. Kennedy, maybe. I don't know. But there is an appetite, right, for people to regain a sense of agency and can do.
Yeah.
And people are looking for that to be able to fight alongside and have that purpose and direction in their lives.
I mean, it kind of feels like you're talking about hope, right? I mean, the crushing nature of a chessboard feels to me like these are all games. Nothing is serious. I hear you talking about the fact that actually government might be making things even harder for people,
right?
Not helping them. So, I mean, it sounds like it's this idea that we want to equip people and that we want to say that there is hope. Actually, we can we can change.
That's right. And an active hope, one that people can take in and agency within, right? Like it's not a line on the couch wistfully thinking that things could be better. Saying, take part in this with me. And, one of the things that's really surprised me over the years of the research that we've done, from urban to rural America, something that's very consistent across the board is the idea that communities are where all the good things start. And I think that that's really a huge opportunity for us to heal as a nation, to be honest, but also to move forward as a party, thinking about ways that we can leverage that community action, find ways for people to work together and get things done. One of the things that we're doing in my hometown is like local community gatherings, potlucks, lots of carbs, but lots of sharing of here's what's going on and here's how we can help. And we see that like local action really making a difference in how people think about civic action, think about working together.
I mean, you're getting there, but what do you think, how does what you're seeing translate into what your advice is for Democrats thinking about from an electoral perspective in 26 and 28? What do you think Democrats need to understand about where people are and what they need to, how they need to meet them where they are and to actually, address what are really, concerns that are big. These sound like big concerns. These are not just, hey, I need you to fix this. It's like, no, I'm worried about the state of the world and where we're going.
Well, I think in terms of how leaders show up, I mean, that's one big step, of course, right? And I think that showing up as strong and effective in messaging that of how leaders can be strong for them, how they can deliver things quickly, I think is going to be a really important part of the story that we're going to be needing to embrace moving forward. And so what that looks like is, establishing a vision for the future, and talking about how you can deliver things and quickly in a way that's really, really meaningful to people. Obviously, the economy is a major concern that people have. And speaking to that, I mean, again, with this past election, we saw the people who prioritized that really had an opportunity to, break out of the pack. But I also think that, leveraging community engagement, leveraging grassroots activism, finding ways to pull people together across parties, regardless of identity is something that people are incredibly hungry for. Finding ways to, work with focus on a local level for change is going to be really, really important. And then, I didn't mention this earlier, but I think it bears repeating. I think a lot of times when we think about civic action, we think about like protests, we think about like fists in the air, and certainly there's a place for that in American democracy, don't get me wrong. But there is a huge blowback we're seeing in the electorate against what people perceive as performative activism. They don't want meaningless words, and they don't want just rah, 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 knocking on doors that never open. They want to see real results. And so whatever that looks like, I think it's really important for Democrats to embrace and find ways to deliver real change and tell stories of that on that community level.
In a speedy way, to your point. In a speedy way.
Caffeine.
I don't want to think things are going to be better 10 years from now. I want to know things are going to be better right now.
That's right.
Well, and I think I was going to ask you kind of got to this right here, but we hear another thing we hear right now is that what people want is a fighter.
Yeah.
And I often wonder, like, what does that even mean, right? I mean, there's a lot of ways to fight, and I think for some people, it's just yelling louder or just, right, and just but I'm not sure that's what people want. Is what you're saying?
That's correct. Yeah, exactly. When we went into that study, we were looking at what a fighter means in this moment. When Trump is president, we have a federal government as it is. What does it look like? And yeah, people are not looking for a fighter in the sense of like someone that's, in the streets going rah, rah, rah. They want somebody who is steady. People brought in images of lions and they talked about how the lion is not roaring, but it is strong and firm and holds the frame. They talked about parents, right, who teach the next generation and approach things from a place of love. It's not about me as a leader, right? It's about you. And I'm going to find ways to orient my policies around you and lift you up. It's so there's a real strong desire for not a fighter in the streets. I feel like I should come from the ride here. Not a fighter in the streets, but a fighter for somebody who's oriented properly, who at the end of the day is doing it for their constituents and not for themselves.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Maybe that goes to another question I have for you about another word we hear a lot right now, which feels right to me. I just don't, it's hard to just explain what you mean, is authenticity.
Yeah.
So, we keep telling leaders they need to be authentic. They need to be authentic communicators. And that feels right. But it also, how do you square kind of the communication style maybe, or the communication, the messaging, or whatever, however you would think about that with what you're saying? Like, where does the authenticity piece come in?
Well, I mean, I think it's sort of twofold, and they're related. I mean, one, we talked about how Americans don't feel like they matter, and I think one, explicitly saying or demonstrating to voters that they matter is a really, really important component of the authenticity story. But I think it all ladders back to this idea of doing it for the right reasons. I think we joked about this before, but like on The Bachelor, right? They always talk about like, are you here for the right reasons? You know,
We're going to start handing out roses to voters.
That idea is more ubiquitous through American thought than I ever could have imagined. You know, whether it's a war or a romantic partner or a leader, people are always looking for intentions. Yeah. And the idea right now that Americans are really hot for is, are people doing this so that they can get on the news? Are they doing this for likes or clicks or pension? Or are they doing it for me and my family and my community? And people can tell the difference. Because of the place that people are fighting for.
Yeah.
You know?
I mean, for me, I feel like this is like, should be so freeing to Democrats and to elected officials, in the sense that, I mean, I happen to, this is our 300 and something podcast. We've talked to so many leaders.
Congratulations.
Well, thank you
so
about
cool.
that. But I bring it up because it's like, we talk to leaders all the time about what got them into politics, why they're doing this. It's always a story about something was wrong in their community. They wanted to fix it. Nobody else was going to fix it. I really believe this is called an honorable profession, that politics is an honorable profession.
Yes.
But I do think that there's become there was a time where people felt like they had to say the right things or they were going to be canceled. People felt like they couldn't just kind of bring themselves just as they were to this work. And it kind of feels to me like what you're saying is actually giving them permission to be free, which is you just got to tell your story about why you are in this, what you're trying to do for people. Be honest, share why you have commonality with people, and don't use the talking points or the, whatever, whether it's groups or, whatever it is, or who's telling you what you should say. You just got to kind of reject that and just say what is honest and truthful for you. That, I think, is what I hear you say.
Absolutely. I mean, people are really hungry for that raw authenticity in a time when there's just such a swirl of media. They're looking for somebody who honestly cares for them. One thing that's really struck me over the years of researching Americans, people will vote for somebody with whom they have almost zero alignment. But if they think that they care about them, if they think that, if you're a Democrat and Republican, vote cares about me, you showed up to my Boy Scout meeting, you showed up, called me on my birthday, whatever, people will go for them and be an enthusiastic supporter of them, regardless of party identity. Because at the end of the day, feeling like you're value aligned, feeling like you're cared for, feeling like you're in it for the right reasons matters a lot more than if you're right on health insurance or you're right on a certain policy.
Yeah. Maybe as a last question, what do you tell people that you work with? So, we often have these conversations in the form, with the prism of electoral politics, but people are governing 24/7 all the time. Like, so, there's probably, it's probably this similarly, but how would you advise people to think about the time that they're governing as a time to address some of these things you're talking about?
Yeah. Well, I think, based off of the research that we've done, there's a couple things that I think can really punch through in this moment. I mean, I think one, being explicit with your care for the American people is really, really important. And saying in an audible way, you matter to me. I care about you. You are my mission. I think really punches through in a time where people don't feel like they're cared for, and that people are in politics for the wrong reasons. Another thing that I think is really important is making visible what you're doing, and saying, this is what I'm working for you. This is how we're iterating on it. Maybe we're encountering some barriers along the way, but we're working on this and working to establish a sense of momentum and speed in the whole thing, and saying, here we go. Here's where we're going. That really is very, very meaningful.
Yeah. People want to see work get done. They want to see, they want their lives to be better.
They do. They do. They do. And even if it means showing your notes and saying, maybe I didn't get my homework done, but here's how much we've accomplished, that's meaningful to people. They want to know what's going on. And can really.
It feels a little counterintuitive almost in these politics, where the incentives are so aligned with yelling louder or, just whatever it is, to just kind of make sure you're talking directly to people, buckle in and deliver and care. Care and deliver. It's kind of what I hear you my takeaway from this conversation. That's care and deliver.
I love that.
Yeah.
Exactly. That's great.
Thank you so much for being here. We're so grateful. And also just thanks for your work on this. I think it's so important that we really deeply understand and really listen. I mean, this is we're not talking about polls or about following the winds. We're talking about really trying to have a mechanism to understand what people deeply are feeling and how to reach them and how to build community around that and all of that. So what you're doing is super important, and I really appreciate it.
Thank you so much. Really glad to be part of it. Thank you.
An Honorable Profession is a New Deal Leaders podcast. Thanks to the team at NewDEAL for producing this episode. We encourage you to bring honor to public service, and because we keep things honorable, no tax dollars are used in the making of this podcast.
This podcast is part of the Democracy Group.